Ladies and gentlemen, students and scholars, teachers and trainers, professionals and professors, listeners and learners, those who are listening from the religion, spirituality, arts, commerce and engineering, the presence of present Prime Minister Dr. Narendra Modi ji, availability of ministers and doctors, respected fathers and mothers, affectionate sons and daughters, I, Dr. Rakesh from USA, heartily cordially welcome all of you. I appreciate, admire your presence today for listening the truth of science and spirituality. It is really nice time, nice place, nice action that we are listening the words of God, energy of the Lord, who is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent and almighty, who is the creator, caretaker and operator, even developer of the whole universe. He who was, he who will and he who is in past, present and future. He never leaves us alone. He shows his existence. He shows his presence in every particle of the universe. Today, we his utmost, unrelenting, unceasing, and unstopping blessings and grace on every people, every kind of people of the world, attain and enjoy the worldly blessings and his grace. Our human body, which is made by 5 elements: air, fire, soil, sky and water, we feel his presence everywhere. Even the social reformist of our nation, Swami Vivekananda, who appealed, proved to the USA with his words, my brothers and sisters of the America, these words are the symbol of our culture. Our culture, which is the superb, unparalleled, incomparable throughout the world. It is well known that for the better, nicer, finer of our society and nation, every citizen, every young man, old man and children has to effort, has to impart his time for the betterment and upliftment, personally, professionally, socially and nationally. It is rightly said that I will pay more for the ability to deal with people than for any other ability under the sun. We do not have business problems. We have people problems. When we solve our people problems, our business problems are substantially resolved. People knowledge is more important than product knowledge. Successful people build pleasing and magnetic personalities, which is what makes them charismatic. This helps in getting friendly cooperation from others. A pleasing personality is easy to recognize but hard to define. It is apparent in the way a person walks and talks, his tone of voice, the warmth in his behavior, and his definitive level of confidence. Some people never lose their attractiveness regardless of age because it flows both from the face and the heart. A pleasing personality is a combination of a person's attitude, behavior, and expressions. Wearing a pleasant expression is more important than anything else you wear. It takes yes, it takes time. It takes a lot of it takes a lot more than a shoe shine and a manicure to give a person polish. Charming manners used to disguise a poor character may work in the short run but reveal themselves rather quickly. Relationships based on talent and personality alone without character make life miserable. Krishna without character is like good looks without goodness. The bottom line is a lasting winning combination requires both character and Krishna. Be courteous to all, but intimate with a few, and let those few be well tried before you give them your confidence. True friendship is a plant of slow growth and must undergo and withstand the shocks of adversity before it is entitled to the appellation. Life is an echo. A little boy got angry with his mother and shouted at her, I hate you, I hate you, because of fear of reprimand. He ran out of the house. He went up to the valley and shouted, I hate you, I hate you. And back came the echo, I hate you, I hate you. This was the first time in his life he had heard an echo. He got scared, went to his mother of protection and said there was a bad boy in the valley who shouted, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. The mother understood and she asked her son to go back and shout, I love you, I love you, I love you. And back came the echo that taught the little boy a lesson that our life is like an echo. We get back what we give. Benjamin Franklin said, when you are good to others, you are best to yourself. Life is a boomerang, whether it is our thoughts, actions, or behavior. Sooner or later, they return, and with great accuracy. Treat people with respect on your way up, because you will be meeting them on your way down. The following story is taken from the best of bits and pieces. Many years ago, two boys were working their way through Stanford University. Their funds got desperately low, and the idea came to them to engage Ignacy Paderewski for a piano recital. They would use the funds to help pay their board and tuition. The great piano's manager asked for a guarantees of $2,000. The guarantee was a lot. The guarantee was a lot of money in those days. But the boys agreed and proceeded to promote the concert. They worked hard, only to find that they had grossed only $1,600. After the concert, the two boys told the great artist the bad news. They gave him entire $600, $1,600, along with promissory note $400, explaining that they would earn the amount of the earliest possible moment and send the money to them. It looked like the end of their college careers. No boys, replied Paderewski, that won't do. Then learning the note in two, he returned the money to them as well. Now he told them, take out of this $1,600 all of your expenses and keep for each of you 10% of the balance for your work. Let me have in the rest. The years rolled by. What war? I came and went. Paderewski, now Premier of Poland, was striving to feed thousands of starving people in his native land. The only person in the world who could help him was Herbert Hoover, who was in charge of the US Food and Relief Bureau. Hoover responded, and soon thousands of tons of food were sent to the Poland. After the starving people were fed, Paderewski journeyed to Paris to thank Hoover for the relief sent him. That's all right, Mr. Paderewski, was Hoover's reply. Besides, you don't remember it, but you helped me once when I was a student at college and I was in trouble. It is one of the most beautiful compensations of life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. Goodness has a way of coming back. That is the nature of the beast. One doesn't have to do good with a desire to get back. It just happens automatically. We see things not the way they are, but the way we are. There is a legend about a wise man who was sitting outside his village. A traveler came up and asked him, "What kind of people live in this village?" "Because I am looking to move from my present one." The wise man asked, "What kind of people live where you want to move from?" The man said, "They are mean, cruel, rude." The wise man replied, "The same kind of people live in the village too." After some time, another traveler came by and asked the same question. And the wise man asked him, "What kind of people live where you want to move from?" And this traveler replied, "The people are very kind, courteous, polite, and good." The wise man said, "You will find the same kind of people here too." What is the moral of the story? Generally, we see the world not the way it is, but the way we are. Most of the time, other people's behavior is a reaction to our own. Entirely depends upon the trust. I believe all relationships are trust relationships, such as employer or employee, parent or child, husband or wife, student or teacher, buyer or seller, customer or salesperson. How can we trust without integrity? Crisis in trust really means crisis in truth. Trust results from being trustworthy. What are the factors that build trust? Reliability gives predictability and comes from commitment. Consistency builds confidence. Respect to self and others gives dignity and shows a caring attitude. Fairness appeals to justice and integrity. Openness shows two-way traffic. Congruence, action and words harmonize. If a person says one thing and behaves differently, how can you trust that person? How can you trust that person? Is it possible? Not at all. Competence comes when a person has the ability and the attitude to serve. And the attitude to serve. Integrity, the key ingredient to trust. acceptance. In spite of our effort to improve, we need to accept each other with our pulses and minuses. Character. A person may have all the competence, but if he lacks character, he can't be trusted. Trust is a great compliment than love. There are some people we love, but we can't trust them. Relationships are like bank accounts. The more we deposit, the greater they become. Therefore, the more we can draw from them. However, if you try to draw without depositing, it leads to disappointment. Many times we feel we are overdrawn, but in reality, we may be under deposited. There are some of the consequences of poor relationships and the lack of trust. Stress, lack of communication, irritation, close-mindedness, no team spirit, lack of credibility, poor self-esteem, suspicion, loss of productivity, isolation, poor health, distrust, anger, prejudice, breakdown of morale, uncooperative behavior, conflict, frustration, unhappiness. What are the some factors that prevent building and maintaining positive relationships? Most of them are self-explanatory or elaborated. Selflessness or selfishness. Both are entirely opposite each other. Lack of courtesy, inconsiderate behavior, not meeting commitments, rude behavior, lack of integrity and honesty, self-centeredness, all person all wrapped up in himself makes a pretty small package. Arrogance, an arrogant person is content with this or with his opinion and knowledge that will guarantee him perpetual ignorance. Conceit, since nature abhors a vacuum, she fills empty heads with conceit. John bragged, "My son gets his intelligence from me." His wife replied, "I'm sure he does, because I have still got mine." Negative attitude, closed mind, lack of listening, suspicious nature, lack of respect for values, means morals, lack of discipline, lack of compassion. Means cruelty is a sign of weakness. Impatience. Anger, temper gets a person in trouble and ego keeps him there. Manipulative behavior. Escapist behavior. Touchy nature. Inconsistency. Unwillingness to accept the truth. Past bad experience. An uncaring attitude. Being ignored is not a good feeling. Being ignored is not a good feeling. It shows a lack of concern. Greed. What is greed? Is the sea water. It is the sea water. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. This probably is not an all-inclusive list. Most of us may have some of the characteristics mentioned. Some may have more of one than the other. The objective is to evaluate and adjust course in those areas. The difference between ego and pride. There are so many diseases by which our soul has covered, has surrounded. How we can feel the presence of Lord with the flight of sky, with the flight of soul in the sky. It is not the game of mind. It is not the game of heart, but it is the blessing and grace of the Lord. The biggest hurdle in building a positive relationship is ego. Ego is self-intoxicating. Ego is negative pride, resulting in arrogance. Healthy pride is a feeling of the pleasure of accomplishment with humility. Ego gives a swollen head, while pride gives a swollen heart. A big head gives a big headache, whereas a big heart gives humility. No matter what the size of a person's accomplishments are, there is never an excuse for having a big head. Pride, yes. Big head, no. Ego, the I know it all attitude. To an egocentric person, the world begins, ends, and resolves around him. An egotist can be funny by default. A boss asked one of his employees how badly he wanted a raise. The employee said, "Real badly. I have been praying to God for one." The boss replied, "You are not going to get it because you went over my head." An egotist talks and looks down on others. Egotism is the anesthetic that deadens the pain of stupidity. What is the difference between selfishness and self-interest? It is important to understand the distinction between these two words. Selfishness is negative and destructive. It destroys relationships because it is based on negative values. It believes in the win or lose principle. Win or loss principle. Self-interest is positive. It welcomes prosperity, peace of mind, good health, and happiness. Self-interest believes in win or win. Envy or jealous. Envy or jealousy. Crab mentality. What is a crab mentality? Do you know how they catch crabs? They put a box with one side open for the crabs to walk in. It has a base but no lid. When the box is full, they close the fourth side. The crabs could easily crawl out of the box and go free. But this doesn't happen because the crab mentality doesn't let it happen. The moment one crab starts crawling up, the other pull it down and nobody gets out. Guess where they all end up? They all get cooked. The same thing is true with people who are jealous. They never get ahead in life and prevent others from succeeding. Jealousy is a sign of poor self-esteem. It is universal trait. It is a universal trait. The biggest challenges comes when jealousy becomes a national character. Countries start degenerating, resulting in disastrous consequences for coming generations. Jealousy corrupts people. One should have an open mind rather than an empty mind. What is the difference between an open mind and an empty mind? An open mind is flexible. It evaluates and may accept or reject ideas and concepts based on merit. Based on merit. An empty mind is a dumping ground for good and bad. It accepts without evaluation. Steps to building a positive personality. Accept responsibility. Responsibility gravitate to the person who can shoulder them. When people accept additional responsibility, they are actually giving themselves a promotion. Responsible behavior is to accept accountability, and that represents maturity. Acceptance of responsibility is a reflection of our attitude and the environment we operate in. Most people are quick to take credit for what goes right, but very few would accept responsibility when things go wrong. A person who does not accept responsibility is not absolved from being responsible. Our objective is to cultivate responsible behavior. Responsible behavior should be inculcated right from childhood. It cannot be taught without a certain degree of obedience. Stop the blame game. Avoid phrases such as everyone else does it, or no one does it, or it is all your fault. People who don't accept responsibility shift the blame to other parents, teachers, genes, God, fate, luck, or the stars. Johnny said, Mama, Jimmy broke the window. Mama asked, how did he do it? Johnny replied, I threw a stone at him and he ducked. People who use their privilege without accepting responsibility usually end up losing them. Responsibility involves thoughtful action. Politeness is greatly required. It is rightly said, humility makes us victor. Arrogant loses all, whosoever. In all the writings of the literature, in all the languages we study it, lies, jealousy and ego whosoever feeds, time and again he dies in spirit as well in deeds. Pettiness causes us to ignore our responsibilities. Think about it. Petty minds are busy passing the buck rather than doing what needs to be done. Social responsibility. The ancient glorious tradition are to teach and learn. Disobedience, offense, ill words hit the tables turn. Those who commit sincerely, patriotism and prayer attain the spiritual peace, divine gleams, the social status, whatever they are. Ancient Indian wisdom teaches us that our first responsibility is to the community, second to our family, and third to ourselves. A society starts degenerating when this order is reversed. Social responsibility ought to be the moral obligation of every citizen. Responsibility and freedom go hand in hand. A sign of a good citizen is that he is willing to pull his own weight. Elevate the grace of land to which you really belong. If it is kept up along, the price of greatness is responsibility. Societies are not destroyed by the activities of rascals, but by the inactivity of good people. What a paradox! What they can tolerate destruction by being inactive. How can they be good? The question is, are they discharging their social responsibility? For evil to flourish, Good people have to do nothing, and evil shall flourish. And evil shall flourish. Social evils, how can become the cause of destruction? Natural disasters. Time to time, we observe and examine this thing in the nature of the nature. How is the nature of the nature? Externally we observe it. But how is the nature of our internal organs? It is really required the true examination and true observation, true evaluation of our life. Consideration. One day, a 10-year-old boy went to an ice cream shop, sat at a table and asked the waitress, "How much is an ice cream cone?" She said, 75 cents. The boy started counting the coins he had in hand. Then he asked how much a small cup of ice cream was. The waiters impatiently replied, 65 cents. The boy said, "I will have the small ice cream cup." He had his ice cream, paid the bill and left. When the waiters came to pick up the empty plate, she was touched. Underneath were 10 1-cent coins as tip. The little boy had consideration for the waiters before he ordered his ice cream. He showed sensitivity and caring. He thought of others before himself. If we all thought like the little boy, we would have a great place to live. Show consideration, courtesy, and politeness. Thoughtfulness shows a caring attitude. Think win or win. A man died and Saint Peter asked him if he would like to go to heaven or hell. The man asked if he would see both before deciding. Saint Peter took him to hell first, and the man saw a big hall with a long table, lots of food on it, and music playing. He also saw rows of people with pale, sad faces. They looked starved, and there was no laughter. And he observed one more thing. Their hands were tied to 4-foot forks and knives, and they were trying to get the food from the center of the table to put into their mouths, but they couldn't. Then he went to see heaven. There he saw a big hall with a long table, with lots of food on the table and music playing. He noticed rows of people on both sides of the table with their hands tied to 4-foot forks and knives also. But he observed there was something different here. People were laughing and were well fed and healthy looking. He noticed, and they were feeding one another across the table. The result was happiness, prosperity, enjoyment, and gratification, because they were not thinking of themselves alone. They were thinking win or win. The same is true of our lives. When we serve our customers, our families, our employers and employees, we automatically win. Choose your words carefully. A person who says what he likes usually ends up hearing what he doesn't like. Be tactful. Tact consists of choosing one's words carefully and knowing how far to go. It also means knowing what to say and what to leave unsaid. Talent without tact may not always be desirable, may not always be desirable. Words reflect attitude. Words can hurt feelings and destroy relationships. More people have been hurt by an improper choice of words than by any natural disaster. Choose what you say rather than say what you choose. That is the difference between wisdom and foolishness. Excessive talking does not mean communication. Talk less, say more. A fool speaks without thinking. A wise man thinks before speaking. Words spoken out of bitterness can cause irreparable damage. The way parents speak to their children in many instances shapes their children's destiny. So, gentlemen, ladies, friends, those who are listening carefully, you daily listen these words. These words are very common words, but are very important for regeneration, recreation and reoperation of our nation. It is greatly required to understand that our nation is the nation of builders, starters, initiators. Gautam Buddha, who started Buddhism, Mahavir Swami, who started Jainism, and Swami Vivekananda, who was the greatest social reformist of the Indian land, who proved to the world he was the most selfless person of the world, who advocated to the world what does the mean of success, appealed to the world to adopt the path of truthfulness, sincerity, honesty, and consistency in character. So, gentlemen, ladies and brothers, you have given a lot of time. It's your valuable time that you have provided to the listening of the truth of science and spirituality. I really heartily, cordially welcome all of you again. I thank God who has given the power to speak. So daily we are to pray to God. Oh God, give us power to speak, give us power to listen, give us power to write and learn and do something better, nicer, finer, greater for our society and nation, which is greatly required in this period of economic crisis, social crisis, political crisis. Our young men, those who are regenerated, really they can get rid from frustration, depression, all kind of sorrows that our nation has, that can be abolished, uprooted by reminding, recollecting, applying, implementing our national and social values of the nation. Our nation is one of the greatest ritualistic nation of the world, and we are to realize it. We are to apply it in our daily life, in our daily routine. We are to get the lesson from the sun, which is the true sun, which is the for our character.